This is an interesting time of the year. This is the time of the year that people do retrospectives, and we look back over the year that was and review it and then talk about the year that is yet to come. And that is what this video is going to be as well. I'm going to review some of the images that I took this past year, ones that I particularly like, and talk about some of the places that I've been able to visit, and do a little entree, if you will, into what 2021 will end up looking like, hopefully. Hi, I'm David Kate of David Kate Photography, and you're watching my YouTube channel. So 2020 has been a really interesting year, and I don't need to go over in any great detail about the pain of 2020. I know that some of you have suffered terribly. Perhaps you've been ill yourself or know someone else who has been ill with COVID. Perhaps you even know someone who's passed away. In which case, my condolences and my prayers go out to you. 2020 kind of started out kind of like a normal year, believe it or not. Went up to Sedona in January. I live in Phoenix, and so Sedona is just like a 2-hour drive away. And so we went up there in January. We go up about 2 or 3 times a year. And I did a little bit of photography up there, did a little bit of hiking, had a great time, and was able to capture a few images that I like and that I made into photographs. In February, I took 2 trips. Actually, in February and in March, I went to Valley of Fire State Park in Nevada. It's a really interesting place. It's really just drop dead gorgeous. It's this beautiful red rock right by where Lake Mead is in Overton, Nevada. It's about 40 miles north of Las Vegas. And it's just absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Like I say, it's got all this red rock, and then you go down into this valley that they call Rainbow Canyon, and you get this multicolored rock, the sandstone, which actually looks just drop dead gorgeous. You got these beautiful hues of purples and pinks and yellows and grays, and it's just stunning. So I took 2 trips there. I took a trip there in February, and I took a trip in March, just before the lockdown. And I was able to grab a few images and got some beautiful sunsets and sunrises, which always kind of is like icing on the cake, if you will, that adds to the overall landscape and the overall beauty of the scene. And just absolutely stunning place. Then April, the lockdown came, and we shut down pretty much for 30 days. And so I did some local stuff. I went to some local places around the area, and I took a few shots, and nothing spectacular, but nothing necessarily that bad either. It's just was kind of just some general stuff. And I actually dabbled a little bit in a little bit of cityscape, dusk, and doing some panos. Then in May, after the lockdown was done and things started to kind of look a little bit better, my wife and I, we went up to the Sandhills in northern Arizona. I had always wanted to go up there to like the Coyote Buttes area and White Pockets. And we took a trip up there and spent a great weekend. And it's an interesting place in that I'd never been there, so pretty much it was more or less a scouting trip for me. The skies were not fantastic, and so I didn't get any fantastic photographs, but I did get a few decent ones that I'll share with you. Then on July 4th weekend, my daughter and we went to Bisti, Za-Da-Nin area up in northwestern New Mexico. And Bisti's a unique place. It's very, very alien looking. It's got some interesting formations. It's a badlands, but you got a whole lot of mushroom rocks and hoodoos and teepees and all kinds of weird geological formations due to erosion. And the sky was fantastic. There were a bunch of passing storms that came through, and the light in the clouds from the sunset, from the sun going down, was just absolutely beautiful. And I got some of my best images from my trip here to Bisti in New Mexico in July. And again, towards the end of July, my wife and we took a trip to California. I went to the Alabama Hills, which I'd been to before, gotten shots of Mobius Arch and stuff like that. But I had always wanted to take a picture of Boot Arch, but I could never find it. I'd be looking all over the place, and I'd be looking on the maps, and I just, for some reason, I just could never find this place. And so I decided that I would go there and I would try to find Boot Arch. And it was really kind of hilarious because I expected it to be visible from the dirt road, but it's kind of not. It's kind of a little bit hidden. And we camped like no more than like 300 yards away from this thing. And I went out in the morning and was hiking around looking for this thing, and I turned around a corner and boom, there it was. And it was just beautiful, and the sky lit up, there was some clouds, and it was just a really, really beautiful morning. And here are some of my more favorite shots from that trip. After we had visited the Alabama Hills, we decided to go up into the Sierra Nevada and hit a place called Horseshoe Meadows. There's a campground up there, and you're up about 11,000 feet or something crazy like that. And the temperature difference was just dramatic. It was only like 20 miles away from the Alabama Hills, but those 20 miles and that 11,000 foot elevation made the world of difference, because we went from 100-degree heat down in the Alabama Hills up to 40 degrees at night up in the Alpine. And it was just really kind of an interesting contrast going from desert and alien landscapes to alpine landscapes with streams and stuff. And so here are a few shots that I took at our camping place in the area there that we went to at Horseshoe Meadow. In August, my mother-in-law passed away, and so I flew back to Portland, Maine, which is home for me, and to attend her funeral. But I was also able to go out and capture some shots at some of my more favorite places. I was born and raised in Portland, Maine, and so Portland for me is just a beautiful place, and Portland Headlight is probably that seminal place for me where I go and I'm in my happy place. I just love the lighthouse there at Portland Headlight. I used to play there as a kid, and I love the rocks, and I love the waves crashing onto the rocks, and for me it's just beautiful. So here are a few photographs that I made on my trip up to Portland, Maine. I kind of ended the year for the most part going up to the north rim of the Grand Canyon in the months of September and October. And I went to the north rim largely because it is less crowded, significantly less crowded than the south rim is. The north rim only receives 15% of all the visitors that visit the Grand Canyon, which means that 85% of those folks are down at the south rim. And so the north rim seemed like a good place to go, especially in the age of COVID. And like I said, I took 2 trips up there. I took a trip up in September, and I followed that up with a trip in October. And I always enjoy going up to the north rim. It's just drop dead gorgeous. And here are a few photographs that I made on that particular trip. And then November and December, I really haven't gone anywhere. It's been really kind of weird. I haven't taken much in terms of landscape photography, but I decided in October that because this virus is going to be around for a while and we're probably not going to get ourselves vaccinated until, who knows, probably May, June timeframe, that I would try to pick up a little bit of astrophotography. And so I've been basically playing with some astrophotography as well as doing some local trips in the local area here, just so that I can, stay familiar with my camera, because I haven't really gone on that many trips this year. And so here are some astrophotography shots that I've managed to pull out of my hat. A combination of beginner's luck, I really do believe, because I've been trying for the month of December and been very, very unsuccessful at really getting a decent astrophotography shot. But in the month of November, I was fairly successful. I was able to get the Pleiades and Andromeda Galaxy and the Orion Nebula. So what's in it for 2021? What's going to be happening? I figure that probably the first half of the year, not much of anything, because we're going to still be in lockdown. I know that here in Arizona, as well as in other places like in California, the virus is increasing and more people are getting sick. And so I figure that for the most part, for this, probably for the spring, I'm just going to be doing some local trips. I'm just going to be hitting some local areas that doesn't require a whole lot of travel, something that's probably about an hour away at most. Go hit the Apache Trail a little bit, which is east of us here, and maybe head down towards the Yuma area and see what's down there, and maybe a little bit down near Tucson. But for the most part, just kind of sticking local. And I'll probably continue to practice improving my astrophotography. It's a very different kind of thing than landscape photography, and so in one sense it's rewarding, but in another sense it's very frustrating. But it's something to do. I can do it in my backyard. I've got dark site that I can go to. And so some of the places I do want to visit that's on my list, again, is I want to shoot more in California. I would really love to go hit the redwoods, and I would love to hit coastal California, especially the northern coast of California, San Francisco and up. I just understand that that's just a beautiful area, and so I would like to be able to go along the coastal route there, California 1, and stop off and take some shots, which then leads me into Oregon and the southern Oregon coast, and going up through the middle coast. And I would actually like to go up and visit Washington too. I haven't been up to Washington at all, and I would love to go to visit Washington. I would love to go to the Palouse, which a lot of people like to go to the Palouse. I've never been there. It just looks like it'd be really interesting photography. And I think I want to explore a little bit in New Mexico. I've been to Bisti, and that's about it. And I'm sure that there's other places in New Mexico that would be just as beautiful and just as different. and I would like to explore more in New Mexico, as well as explore a little bit more in Utah. I drove along Utah 12. It's a state highway there. That was just absolutely stunning. I was on my way to Arches, and so I didn't feel that I didn't have the time really to be able to stop and enjoy the beauty and to do some photography, but there's just some stunning views along that particular scenic route that I like to go back and revisit. I'd also like to go up to Cedar Mesa and visit some archaeological ruins. And so, yeah, there's a lot of places and a lot of things to go see and do yet for me to go and photograph. And I'm hoping that maybe in the second half of this year, I'll be able to do that. So that's about it. That was 2020 and some of my plans for 2021. Not anything out of the ordinary, other than probably not much in the first half of the year, and probably going to be a jam-packed loaded second half of the year. It's just the way it works. So if you like this and you want more content like this, or content about landscape photography, just like this page and go down below and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.